it's not, let me know. I just turned it on. Yeah. Okay, somebody else did, so I think we're good. Okay, we're good. All right. We'll call this committee of the whole meeting to order on April 15th, 2025 at 6:09 PM. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let me switch back to the. Okay. Is there anybody who'd like to speak under public participation this evening? Okay, for the record, there is no public participation. We will start with item number 4, Ray Jackson, Grand Master of Illinois for the Odd Fellows, to speak with you about the Odd Fellows and the proclamation 2025-512. Mr. Jackson, floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pull the mic down.
Yes, please.
Okay, there we go. Mayor, council members, distinguished guests, I am Ray Jackson, Grand Master of the Independent Order of Oddfellows, Illinois. The Independent Order of Oddfellows began in England in the 18th century. It followed the movement to the New World in 1819, where we planted our American roots in Baltimore, Maryland. We celebrate our 206th year, the 26th of this month. Our philanthropy quickly spread westward, and in 1836, the first lodge in Illinois was formed in Alton. Good, hard-working people wishing to help their fellow man joined our ranks, and many more lodges were formed throughout our state. Enough so that the need arose to bring us all together, and the Grand Lodge of Illinois, the first governing body in the state, was chartered in 1838. We have a very deep history right here in the city of Lincoln. 169 years ago, in 1856, Lincoln Lodge, the 204th lodge in Illinois, was opened. The Oddfellows' creed since the beginning included a promise to educate the orphan. So Lincoln was chosen in 1891 for the new location of the Oddfellows Orphans' Home. Picked carefully because of generous donations from the city of Lincoln, its residents, and its proximity to the railroad. The home broke ground later that year with a crowd of 17,000 onlookers enjoying the festivities. As soon as the doors opened, 59 children found their home, and over 1,700 children were raised from its humble beginnings to its close in 1995, when the implementation of the foster care program took over. Times have changed since then. People have progressed and cities have grown. But the sick and the needy still struggle exactly as they did then, and the pain and hunger of our community's poor children feel, and the need for their safety and education continues today. How blessed would it be in a world where we could say our work is done? But there is no such relief. Our good works are needed today as much as ever before. So we, the organization with the funny name, still do the things we did in the past. We still visit the sick, still relieve the distressed, still bury the dead, and still educate the orphan. And we will continue to do so until the last Oddfellow's feet no longer press on God's green earth. The Independent Order of Oddfellows is a non-political, non-sectarian, charitable 501c3 organization, open to all races and genders. Lincoln Lodge 204 meets at the Grand Lodge building at 845 Wyatt, Lincoln, on the fourth Monday of every month at 6:30. The Grand Lodge building also incorporates a beautiful museum of our history, and the public is always welcome to visit. Thank you so very much for your time, and God bless your beautiful city.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Yeah, were we going to present this one? This was for last week, correct? And we do have a signed copy of the proclamation that the council passed last week, so I'll step up there and I'll present it to you.
Great, thank you. Whereas the Lincoln, Illinois Lodge was chartered in 1856 in Lincoln, Illinois, and instituted on May 16, 1856, and whereas in 1891 Lincoln was chosen to be the location of the Oddfellows Orphans Home due to generous donations of the Lincoln community, and whereas the Independent Order of Oddfellows is celebrating its 206th year in the United States, and whereas Lincoln Lodge 204 is also celebrating its 196th anniversary in the Lincoln community. Whereas the Oddfellows aim to provide a framework that promotes personal and social development, and whereas the Oddfellows believe in universal brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God, Oddfellows is a nonpartisan, non-sectarian, welcoming of all people without regard to race, gender, sexual orientation, or national origin. Therefore, I, Mayor Tracy Welch, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby honor the dedication and leadership of this organization and celebrate their 206th anniversary in the United States and 196th anniversary in Lincoln. Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, the next item up this evening is item number 5, the mayoral appointment of William Bill Cooper to the position of Code Enforcement Officer. Chief Meister?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, to put things simply, we lost our current code enforcement officer to a new position that he was able to attain. And Bill Cooper's name was passed on to me, and I conducted an interview with him. I found him to be a intelligent, even-tempered, and good individual to fill the vacancy for the code enforcement officer. Bill is a Lincoln resident. He's been here with his wife for over 30 years now. He served our community and our state as a corrections officer at the Illinois Department of Corrections out at one of the prisons here in Logan County, and furthermore served as a parole agent. And I think that some of his experiences in serving in those capacities can translate well into the code enforcement position. Dealing with people who may not be happy with you sometimes is a challenge, and he has a lot of experience in that. So it is my recommendation that that Bill is approved to fill the position for code enforcement. During my interview with him and a pretty long discussion, I found that that he understood the concept of attempting to gain compliance instead of just handing out citations, which is a goal of mine. Obviously, sometimes enforcement is just necessary when somebody isn't compliant, no matter what you do. But I think that he has the type of character to convince people to get in compliance with our codes without having to be heavy-handed. So, Bill is my recommendation to you, Mayor Welch, and I would appreciate any questions from the council that you may have.
Ms. O'Donoghue?
When we started this position, I know the guy that took it the first time, he had other things that he had going on in life too. So how often is he going to be working? What is
So Mr. Cooper is going to be a little bit more available than Mr. Harrison was. Mr. Harrison works as a school resource officer over in a county next to us, and they lost another person who was sharing those duties with him. So that's why he can no longer fill his day here a week. Mr. Cooper has committed to 2 days a week, which I think that we can handle budgetarily. Initially, we planned for 3 days, but it just wasn't possible with the schedule of our former officer. So 2 days a week, all year long is what Bill can give to us. He is retired, so he explained at times he may have vacations and things like that planned, which I'm understanding of.
Any other questions for Chief Meister? Mr. Parrott?
How soon can he start?
How soon do you want to sign the paper?
As soon as we
He's
can.
on vacation this week. The mayor and I invited him up today, but he was on a vacation that he already had planned with his family. So he's going to come up next week and
Perfect. Thank you.
get him started probably May 1.
Okay. We're okay to put this on the regular agenda? Okay, we will place item number 5 on the regular agenda. That brings us down to item number 6, Arbor Day proclamation. For the record, I'll read the proclamation that's in the packet. Proclamation 2025 and we'll fill in that number later, Arbor Day celebration. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the city of Lincoln, Illinois has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now, therefore, I, Tracy Welch, Mayor of the City of Lincoln, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the City of Lincoln, Illinois, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Mr. Landers, anything to add to this proclamation?
We will have press releases coming out soon. We are recognized for our 21st year as a Tree City USA community. This proclamation is one of the standards that we have to meet. And then Arbor Day is the last Friday in April, and we will be having a tree planting ceremony in honor of Arbor Day. So look for more information to come.
Council, okay to place this on the regular agenda? Okay, we'll place that on the regular agenda. Item number 7, resolution approving the content of certain executive session meeting minutes of the City Council of the City of Lincoln. Mr. Hoblet?
So the council has before them or should have before them the minutes of the executive session minutes. We do these once every 6 months, as what is demanded by statute, in order to review and to approve said minutes, but also to, if necessary, for the purposes of our purposes, to keep those minutes closed, as you would say. So they're before you, and like I said, we've done these about numerous times at this point. If they have any questions, comments, I would suggest either you can take them up with me or with Ms. Bateman, who I believe has given those minutes out to you all for review.
Okay, place this on the regular agenda. Okay, item number 7 will go on the regular agenda. Next item is item number 8, ordinance authorizing the sale of excess personal property. Mr. Hoblet?
Again, this is another one that we do practically on a yearly basis at this point. We actually have 3 exhibits. There's going to be an amended version of this ordinance that's going to be coming your way because there is one item from the mayor's office that is to be added. I have that already created, and probably after I get done talking with you, we'll go ahead and send it out at that point. So it'll be in your guys' email. But this is just a sale of excess personal property that's no longer being utilized by the respective departments, and to sell it and recoup at least some cost, for the taxpayer.
Any questions for Mr. Hoblet? Regular agenda? Okay, we'll place item number 8 on the regular agenda. Okay, the next item is item number 9, request a permit, Lincoln Community High School Prom Grand March, Saturday, May 3rd, 2025. Ms. Bateman, anything to add on this one?
No, this is something they do every year up at the courthouse lawn. They block the same streets and it's cut and dry. That's it.
Any questions for Ms. Bateman? Okay. Place this on the consent agenda. Okay, we'll place item number 9 on the consent agenda. Next up is item number 10, request a permit, Washington Monroe Community Carnival, Saturday, May 3rd, 2025. Ms. Bateman?
This is something that apparently the Washington Monroe decided to do for the school. It's on a Saturday from 9 until 1:30. They're only closing Sheridan and Delavan. They have games and for the kids and stuff. And I really don't know if it's open to the public or if it's just Washington Monroe children. I do not know that. I can always find out.
Any questions from the council? Okay, place this on the consent agenda as well. Okay, place item number 10 on the consent agenda. Okay, next item up is item number 11, award of 2-year contract for mowing of nuisance properties in the city of Lincoln. Mr. Woodhull.
Thank you, Mayor. As you're aware, every 2 years we recontract or go out for bid for a new contract for the nuisance mowing in the city. This year we received 3 bids. They were shown to you in the packet, and our recommendation is to award the contract to Midstate Exterior Solutions LLC it'll be a 2-year contract for the nuisance mowing.
Any questions for Mr. Woodhull? Place this on the regular agenda. Okay, item number 11 we'll place on the regular agenda. Okay, the next item up is item number 12, ordinance amending term and composition of the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Hoblet.
So I was approached by the mayor to create an ordinance that would adjust the terms of the Historic Preservation Commission that we have here. I believe we're having some difficulty with membership, either retaining or getting new members. So therefore, we're looking to expand the purview of this. I guess the most comparison I could have to this is that we encountered this, like say, with the police department, where we used to be just a city of Lincoln, and then we expanded it further and further out, in order to try to make it more palatable or more desirable to come work here. This is the same thing for the commission. I believe we have some people that live immediately outside the city that would like to serve on the commission. We have people that are currently on the commission that will currently, with the way the rules state now, would no longer be able to serve on that commission because they can only serve 2 consecutive terms. So with that being said, there's been a desire to adjust those rules, and that is what is before you now.
Any questions? Place this on the regular agenda. Okay, item number 12 we'll place on the regular agenda. Next item is item number 13, certificates of deposit sewer enterprise fund. Mr. Conzo.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you've all received the memo. It was in the agenda packet where I have kind of outlined the process there and why we are doing this. Superintendent Bounds and I talked at length about this in a couple of occasions. And the idea with this is to get some investment income from that $650,000, and I have delineated that in the memo. The amounts that you see there for a 3-month CD, 6-month CD, and 7-month CDs were the highest that were submitted. I had contacted various local banks, and these were the three highest, as you see there in the memo. I know you can't vote on this tonight. I would like, if possible, to get an idea of your thinking on this. So if this were Monday night, would you be in favor of this? And the reason I'd like to know that is I'd like to contact these banks and have them start on the paperwork. Of course, we wouldn't sign any of that paperwork until a formal vote was taken on this next Monday. So first of all, I take any questions that you have. And following that, if you're agreeable to approving this purchase, or this investment, not purchase.
Mr. Bateman?
Do you happen to have a copy that you could present Monday night that doesn't have doodle on Abe Lincoln's face?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. That just didn't copy. Didn't come through. I didn't write that on there. Yes, that. I know there was some.
Looks like he was trying to enhance his smile.
Yes, I know there was some problem with the original stationery that I used, and the city clerk had to transfer it onto another one. And she did a very effective job, but I'm not sure how that. It does not look great, does it? No, that's.
Any questions for Mr. Conzo? Place this on the regular agenda? Okay. And is the council amenable to Mr. Conzo at least starting the paperwork? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item number 14, fencing purchase for outdoor storage. Chief Meister.
Thank you, Mayor. As described in my memo, the Lincoln Police Department at any given time has between 5,000 and 6,000 pieces of property or evidence on hand. And part of where we store that property is in our 6th Street garage, the north annex of the police department. Bay number 1 is the evidence storage bay. It's also where we have installed special lighting and things to process vehicles that were involved in crimes. Unfortunately, due to the amount of property crime that we see nowadays, that bay is completely full of bicycles, motorized bicycles, scooters, and a lot of tools. That has limited our ability to use that bay for what it was intended for, being processing vehicle evidence. So the reason why I'm asking for this, the approval of this purchase, is to utilize some space that we have around the 6th Street garage to store some things that we don't need in secure storage, specifically bicycles. That's the biggest thing. And sometimes we have several trailers and things like that that are stolen that don't need to be stored inside, because there's no threat to the chain of custody of that evidence. There's no fingerprints to be lifted from it or DNA to be processed off of it. So it can be stored in a different location, freeing up space for what that bay is intended for. So we reached out to Goodman Fencing. They were awarded our last bid, the project down on South Kickapoo Street, or West Kickapoo, where we made the new impound lot and across from the water department. What do you call that? The
Wastewater treatment.
wastewater treatment plant. Thank you. Every once in a while, I need a little help. So, and they did a wonderful job on that project. We did reach out to another more local company that offered the same type of service, but we didn't get a positive response. So my recommendation is for the council to approve the bid as proposed in the memo. I believe it was $8,400 with not to exceed 9,000. Just in case they run into some sort of problem, I wanted to give a little leeway there.
Any questions for Chief? Yeah. Place it. Alderman Downs.
Yes, sir.
That's a lot of fencing. How many bicycles do you think you have? I don't need an exact
Wanna see
number,
a
but just
picture?
just a
So right
ballpark.
now, Bay 1 probably has 60 bicycles in it. Those are just regular bicycles, not motorcycles and carts and things like that are attached to the bicycles when we take them. We did spend a little bit of money on making evidence storage racks so that we could elevate some of that stuff, get it off the ground, and utilize our space a little better. And that's helped out, but I'll show you a picture. That bay is 30 feet long, and I've got about 10 feet left before I hit the door with bicycles.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Alderman Anderson.
Chief, how long do you have to keep the bikes before you have a sale or can liquidate them?
That's a good question. So it depends on how the property is classified. If it's evidence of a crime, then we have to keep it until the case is adjudicated. And then all of the appeals are over with. So there's a time frame that after a person is found guilty, a case is adjudicated or whatever, that they can appeal it. We have to keep it for that period of time as well before we can get rid of it. But that's only for evidence. Then we have abandoned property, which if we can identify who the owner is, then it's usually a 30-day process. But if it's just like unclaimed property that we have no idea who it belongs to, it can take a little bit longer because we have to try to identify. We have to make a good faith effort to identify who it belongs to. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Chief Meister? Place this item on the regular agenda. Okay. Place item number 14 on the regular agenda. Okay, next up is item number 15, fire engine purchase. Chief Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. As described in the packet, one of our engines is 24 years old. The other is 14. Do we need a new fire engine tomorrow? No, but the time to start looking at them is now. Rumor basically in the marketplace is you used to spec a truck, you'd put it out for bid, you'd take the low bid or whatever. Now they're talking about maybe not honoring that because the wait time is 2 to 4 years across the major manufacturers. So with inflation and everything else, these companies are afraid they're not going to make a profit. So what I'd like to do is just get authorization just to start that process now. There are options that we have. I put in here for a custom spec'd engine. They said expect it to be $1,050,000 to $1,100,000. I wrote it for $1.2 million, which that funding can obviously come later because we don't have to pay anything. With that being said, our newest truck, 5103, the last payment on that truck will be next month, and that truck is 6 years old. So it would be the only thing we're paying on. And again, is it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? They really can't tell us until we start. With other options, though, like I said, they could be cheaper options, and this is at the will of the council. We don't have to have a custom spec brand new truck. We could get by with something like 5104, which was not a spec truck. I would prefer a spec truck, but also understand it's about a $250,000 difference. When we get to spec our own truck, we get to specify the motor, we get to specify the compartments, the hose loads, the everything else to our exact needs. But it is another option to go the other route. There is a third option to start looking for used fire engines, which is considerably cheaper than that. The problem we run into that is the problem we're having now. In here I put down, we spent over $50,000 in the last fiscal year just in maintenance repairs on the fleet we have, and that number is actually closer to $60,000. I wrote this 2 weeks ago. So is it cost effective? That's for the council to decide what you want to do.
Questions for Chief Johnson? Mr. Gonzo.
Not a question necessarily, but just an observation based on what the chief just said. I was here when we purchased the last fire truck and the most recent purchase of fire engine. As I recall, that engine, which was 2011, somewhere in there.
That's correct.
Was about $370,000 at that point, and now you see what the chief just told you about $1.2 million. The last fire truck that we bought, which was 7 years ago, that's the one that just referred to, it'll be paid off in May. Actually, it's May 6th to be exact. About $87,000 payment there. That one was, I think, $1,231,000. And there's a considerable difference, obviously, in the size between those two.
No, that is correct. The cost of fire engines and fire trucks has doubled in the past 5 years.
Alderman Parrott.
So our last fire truck we purchased was a special build for its length so that we could get it into our current building here. Is it in our current building?
Does not fit in our building.
Okay.
Bill, though.
It could fit, but it doesn't fit, or
It looks like there's going to need some serious remodeling to make it fit, including electrical and everything else. It is stored in Hamilton Street Garage. It is not used as a first response vehicle. It is used at large fires, when the off-duty crews come in. It was utilized down on Sangamon Street last September. But at this point, it does
and I
not
think we
fit in our
paid
building.
extra to have that size so that we could get it in. Is that correct? Do you recall?
I believe that was the case. I was not on the truck committee then, though, so I don't know really the details to it, but that was definitely the idea. How that didn't happen, I don't have an answer to.
And so the quote that for the 1.2 million, that would be for the same size of truck that we currently have?
Well, that would be for an engine. So your fire engine, your fire truck are two different things. Your engine hauls the water and puts the fire out, and the truck hauls everything else and has an aerial device and whatnot. So the engine that we're looking for would be the same size as we have now, so it would easily fit in the building. And we'd still look at the same size tanks, same size gallons per minute on the pump and things like that. So, so the fire truck would be twice as much. And they're quite a bit bigger.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. McClellan.
I believe you said you have difficulty finding people sometimes to work on the machines too.
We've had a lot of issues with that. We use different people for maintenance. The maintenance was becoming so difficult to try and schedule, keeping one here, one out of service, and so forth. Ms. Pentelco actually took over our scheduling for all that. So we've set up a system now where when the guys check the trucks in the morning, if there's something that's broken, needs fixed, it gets emailed over to me. We have a list where we prioritize what's going to be repaired and what's not. I then send that to Ashley, and she lets us know when and where it's supposed to be, and it's made my life easier.
Mr. Sanders.
All right. To clarify, the price that we got today, when you order it, will be the price we're locked into, not when we get the truck. Say, 4 years
To
from now.
clarify, according to the major manufacturers that were contacted, they're not exactly doing that yet. But they did say, watch out, because the writing's on the wall. So yes, it looks like once we spec a truck out and put it out for bids, and the bids are accepted, then that would be locked in. I'm not sure, like I said, in 6 months, if they change that and we don't have our specs done yet, I don't know.
Alderwoman McClellan.
Sooner you get it done, spec'd out, and accept it, the better off we are. Because 4 years from now, there's going to be an election, and the economy is going to be skyrocket again.
I agree. Specking
that
it
truck's
now.
going to go up another $1 million.
It could do that.
Ms. McClellan.
How far away do you have to take the trucks to get them worked on?
So right now we have one person here locally that can work on them. A lot of times we'll go to Bloomington, Normal, Washington, Morton, and then Atlanta actually. And Atlanta has been providing most of our service on 5104.
So you don't really have trouble finding people to actually get them in at the right time and get them.
We gotta ask very nicely, but they usually, especially the large, like the semi mechanics and whatnot, if it's a frontline apparatus and they know we're gonna be down in the city of Lincoln, they'll try and move us to the front of the line.
Further questions for Chief Johnson? Okay. Place this on the regular agenda. Okay. Place item number 15 on the regular agenda. Okay, next item is item number 16, award of City Hall general cleaning contract. Ms. Bateman.
I put out cleaning contract for City Hall, and Got 6 bids, which was great. There was so many of them. I'm asking to the council to approve Resilient. It was not the lowest bid, it was the second to the lowest. The lowest bid did not bid per.
Place item number 16 on the regular agenda. Next up is item number 17, the budget resolution for fiscal year 25-26. Treasurer Conzo.
Thank you, Mayor. Would point out, first of all, we had, again, this year, committee work on this, which consisted of Alderman McClellan, Alderman Sanders, and me, and as we did last year, and I want to thank them for putting in a lot of hours on this and asking a lot of really good questions. We sat down with the police chief, the fire chief, the street superintendent, the building and zoning officer, the sewer superintendent, the mayor, the city clerk, and I don't know who else. Ms. Metelko, I think at one point we talked with her as well, and this is kind of what we came up with. I thank everybody who, took their portion of the budget, and I think, my opinion is that they very diligently tried to contain costs and budget accordingly. Of course, there's many things which you can't anticipate that happen. They do every year, which is, why we have appropriation ordinance that'll come up later. But the difference is this is what they plan to spend at this point in time, subject to amendment later in the year, either reduction if the revenue doesn't support it, or increase if the revenue does support it, if there is a need to spend it. But that would be those would be amendments that that the council would vote on. I know you've all had this amended document since I believe last Thursday is when I sent it out to everybody. It differs slightly from the previous one. Anyway, after the previous one had a little bit more expenditures than we would have liked, and I worked with each of the department heads, and they all came up with ideas, very good ideas to cut back a little bit on things, and that's reflected in the budget. And I want to thank each and every one of them for doing that and doing a very good job of it. So the resolution that you have before you is there for your review or comments or questions.
Alderman Parrott.
Treasurer, compared from this year, or for this coming budget, to last year's budget for expenditures and payments, how much higher are we than the previous year?
Well, part of it is there's quite a bit, but there's $3 million in there just for the 5th Street Road improvement project. And of course, there'll be revenue that will cover that, but that revenue will be in the form of a bond, alternate revenue bond. So that's a big part of it. If you look at the last page there of I think page 22 of the main document, you'll see there that's included in that there. And so you see it's $28,871,000 as opposed to $23,298,000. So you see, about a little over $6 million there, but $3 million of that is, as I said, is the 5th Street Road project, and the others are other capital expenditures. If you go through the lines on it, there's difference. So the union contracts provide for salary increases, so there's some of that. There is also things in the capital project fund. The general fund, though, if you look specifically at that, our primary operating fund, and I believe that a summary of that, or the last page of that is probably, let's see, page 11 or page, that is not right, page 10. There were about $600,000 up above, and that's our primary fund. And there, you see, last year we were $9,532,000. This year, $10,106,000. So that's really one that you want to look at closely. And that it's under 600,000. Looks like about 570-some thousand.
If you had to forecast, a year from now for a budget, what do you think we would be looking like as far as, are we going to have we have more roads to do? 5th Street is a 2-year project, right?
That's my understanding, yeah.
And so is that $3 million going to be all of it going to be spent in this this coming fiscal year?
It'll be available to be spent.
But our plan is over the next 2 years.
2 years, but we would, I believe the original estimate on that was $6 million, and if I recall, is that correct?
Yes, the city's share of it is $6 million. What could affect the timing on that is that IDOT will take all the invoices, pay the invoices, and then we will reimburse IDOT for those. So as far as when the money will be spent and how quickly, I couldn't even begin to guess at that, so.
Yeah. So we're close to 6 million above from the previous year. I'm just trying to think if we'll be 6 million the next year, and then how that will impact us. You know, right now
Well,
we're pretty good, right?
Yeah, yes, yes, and those bond, I mean, that bond will probably be, when we're done, be 6 million. We were gonna do this in stages, so 3 million of it, for this coming fiscal year, and then the other 3 million the following fiscal year, because, you know, there's no point in borrowing that money before we can actually spend it, have the expenditure, incur the expenditures that we would spend it on. You're welcome, thank you. That's good questions.
Any other questions for Treasurer Conzo? Okay, so do we need to,
Put it on
what's the next meeting pertaining to the budget?
the 21st, there'll be a public hearing prior to the voting meeting,
6 o'clock.
and you can put it on the agenda for that voting meeting.
For the 21st? Okay. Council. That's the will of the council. Council, okay, putting it on the agenda for the 21st? Okay.
Thank you.
If you do have any questions between now and then, please reach out to Treasurer Conzo so he can provide clarification on any questions you may have.
I would say also to the other members of the budget committee too. I think they're very familiar with the document, and having studied it for quite a while and spent a lot of time in meetings on it, so I'm sure they'd be able to help you. But of course, I would be very happy to answer your questions as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, the next item is item number 18, discussion regarding tourism. Okay, I spoke with, I think, everybody here tonight on the council. I haven't been able to speak with Ms. Rolfs. She was not feeling well, and I haven't had a chance to connect with her yet. But essentially what the ask is of the council is to consider taking the 95% that we typically provide in hotel motel tax and retaining that at the city. And I'll give an explanation. I'll try not to be super long-winded. Some of you have already heard this, but for the sake of discussion, I'll repeat some of this. First and foremost, I want to say that this request is not a reflection of the Logan County Tourism Bureau. It's not a reflection of anyone in particular. It's just a statement of fact based on the information that's been provided. And the request is essentially driven to see if we can shift the model that we've been operating with tourism and see if we can run a more efficient program that we believe will give more exposure to the community by way of tourism. So myself and others, we've spoke about this. We think that given the amount of money that has been spent, we're not necessarily seeing the return on the investment of the city. This is based on community feedback that I've received. I know we've seen a lot of this on Facebook as well throughout the last couple years. And some of that is driven by the success of other communities that are surrounding us. Feedback from area hotels. I've spoke with some hotels in the area. This is not a reflection of all of them. It's just a couple that came to me and felt that tourism could have better served them. I know they've spoke with tourism, and tourism gave them a commitment to address that. Just some general observations that have taken place. But also, and I think this is the most important piece, is there was a recent review that was done, and it was actually conducted by the Logan County Tourism Bureau, or I should say by Mr. Scott McCoy on behalf of the Logan County Tourism Bureau. In that document, I'm going to share some numbers, which is driving some of this conversation. The city of Lincoln provides $169,000 in hotel motel tax. Per the document, the state of Illinois provided a grant. It's 44,000 and some change. So I rounded up to 45,000. The Mill Museum, they sell things down there, souvenirs, etc. The museum generated $7,000. So, you know, based on that calculation, loosely, it's $221,000. Then we get into the expenses. The expenses, I'll start off with the big ones, and that is payroll and taxes. Per the document, payroll and taxes is roughly $126,000. So of the $169,000 we give, 75% of that tourism money is being spent on payroll and taxes. That's before we even get to the work at hand of tourism. Then they have other expenses of $35,000, which is grants and other things, pass-throughs. Rent is $11,700. They have insurance costs for all of the attractions that they have, both in the depot, the wagon, the mill, the welcome park. That's $9,000. Legal and professional services is $8,000. Utilities is $6,000. Office supplies $4,600. Miscellaneous unknown per the document is $3,271. All of that combined is roughly $5,000. So if we had $221,000 of income, $205,000 of that has been spent on those items, leaving roughly $16,000 extra, okay, in the positive. But then we get into the cost of advertising and marketing, which is the meat and potatoes of tourism, right? At least in the current program. After you factor in the $68,000 for advertising and marketing, that's actually a negative amount of $51,600. So per the document that was based on the facts that were provided by the Bureau, it's running at a negative, okay? So that's, again, and I'll reiterate this repeatedly, it's not a reflection of anybody in particular or the Bureau, it's just the facts as they currently stand. So in my opinion, what started this was when I saw this document, it became very apparent that the Bureau is top heavy in expenses. They're spending an awful lot of money to run the Bureau, and the numbers aren't necessarily, or the results are not necessarily being reflected. So then the next step is looking at what the potential savings could be, okay? I'm only going to stick to a couple things here because we can get inundated with all the numbers. But if we just look at salaries and rent for the Logan County Tourism Bureau, that's about $137,000, okay? So that's the 126 plus the 11,700 for rent. If we were to go with a city-run tourism department, the council is aware of this, I've spoke with Mr. McCoy. Mr. McCoy, for the record, he runs a consulting business. He is essentially the closest thing we have to a Route 66 expert. For reference, he's responsible for the success in Atlanta. He was the former mayor of Pontiac and is responsible for their program and their success up there. So Mr. McCoy knows what he's doing. I had a conversation with him. Of course, this is all very loose. Nothing is locked in. But I asked him off the cuff, if we were to bring him in under the city as a consultant, what he thought that cost would be. He threw me a number of $45,000. So we're spending $126,000 on payroll and taxes. He would charge us $45,000. Of course, we'd have to have a couple part-time individuals, at least one, maybe two, and that would be another $15,000. So you're looking at, a $70,000 roughly savings right there. That's a lot of money that could be spent toward other things by way of tourism. Okay. Then when you factor in the grants, the grants, they spent roughly, and when I mean the grants, these are these micro grants that they have. I think there's sponsorship, advertising, and preservation. Is that correct, Sam and Steve? I think those are the three. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, they gave out, according to the document, 14,000 plus in grants. So I think you can kind of see where this is going by way of the fact that it's costing a lot of money to run the Bureau. And it's just because that's the current model. But the fact of the matter is that the city of Lincoln is footing the majority of that program. As I mentioned before, we put the lion's share in, they get grants, and then they also have some stuff they purchase. For them to get the grants, they have to have a 30% match. So in this case, let's say the 45,000, they have to have at least 15,000 in matching funds from another source. We obviously exceed that amount in what we give them. That amount's going to go up to 40% next year, the way I understand it. So you'll see that that's going up. Another couple things that became obvious during this was that the Bureau supports all of the municipalities: Lincoln, Atlanta, Broadwell, Elkhart, etc., Mount Pulaski. But it's called the Logan County Tourism Bureau. However, and this, again, before I say this, please understand, it's not meant to be a negative. I'm just stating fact. The County of Logan does not contribute anything to the program. They do have 2 seats on the board, and so they have a presence so that we can make sure that both parties are represented. But currently in today's model, they do not provide any sort of matching for that. Lincoln is the only municipality providing the funds, and I had mentioned the 95 of the tax. Atlanta is in Logan County, but Atlanta keeps all of their funds to operate their program in Atlanta. So those funds don't even come down here to Lincoln for the Logan County Tourism Bureau. That being said, in some of the conversations that we've had about this, and I met with members of tourism, and Mr. Parrott, Mr. Downs were there as well, and Miss Bateman. We met last Friday. We had talked about this, and the topic of the CVB, or the Convention and Visitors Bureau, came up. So for those who aren't familiar, and I'm not an expert, but I'll tell you what I know. The CVB status is what allows the Logan County Tourism Bureau to get that grant. That this year was $44,000. Next year it could be another amount. It's really dependent on other income sources. They can only get it if they get a 30% match, 40% next year, and their CEO has to be full-time. So those are some of the loose stipulations to maintain that CVB status. In this particular case, and I don't know, it might be a historical thing, but according to what I read, the rules that govern CVBs, the matching fund source is the one that has to certify that status every year. I can't figure out why the county is the one that has to certify it, but they are. The city, to the best of my knowledge, has not provided that certification, unless, of course, what they're submitting might be our funding agreement. That's a question that's unanswered. Okay? So, for the reasons that I've specified here, I believe that it is time for the city of Lincoln to consider taking the funding that we normally provide to the Bureau and starting a tourism department under the city of Lincoln with a contractor running that service on our behalf. It's a more lean, more efficient process. I believe that we will see better results for the money. And again, that is not meant to be derogatory towards the Tourism Bureau. I'm just going based off perceptions and what we've been told. There are people that want to maintain the CVB status. I think that's a point of perhaps contention. There's people that want to see the county still be represented in some way, shape, or form. And so when we were having this conversation Friday, we talked about a compromise. Is that what you safely call it, a compromise. So to at least give the outlying communities an opportunity to receive assistance, those of us that were in here felt that we could still, especially since we're going to see a savings, we could contribute to the Logan County Tourism Bureau if they chose to remain a bureau in the amount of $25,000 or an amount to be determined by the council. I would recommend that if we do that under the stipulation that our partners in the Logan County Board find a way to be a matching contributor to that as well. Because then it gives Logan County the opportunity to truly represent the municipalities that they represent. It keeps the CVB status intact for those who would like to see that happen. It provides adequate funding for them to hire a full-time CEO to operate that, therefore meeting that requirement. And so I think that that's a win-win. Now we'll have to work through some other things such as what is the mission of the Logan County Tourism Bureau versus the City of Lincoln. I think we can make those delineations pretty simple. There's also some questions about the assets that they own. So right now, the Logan County Tourism Bureau owns the wagon, they own the mill, and they are getting ready to take ownership here soon of some other Route 66 attractions. There's going to be some White Lincoln letters, a donut. There's some watermelon benches. These are all been ordered as part of a grant that they received from the state. So there's ownership of those assets that has to be discussed. Those of us that were in the meeting believe it would be appropriate for the city to take ownership of those since we have the primary funding to do so. We could then insure those assets. There's one less expense they have to incur. And I talked with Ms. Bateman about it. Obviously, we'd have to talk to the company, but we already have insurance, so we should be able to add these to our current policy. We already have legal line items, especially in the budget, which we've talked about, so they wouldn't have legal expenses. So I think you can start to see that it would make sense that we could take the lion's share of the responsibility, still run lean and efficient, and give the Tourism Bureau an opportunity to continue on to support the county. So that's an awful lot I said, but I want to make sure I shared everything with everybody. There might be something I forgot, but I guess I would open it up to the floor and we can have a discussion. Mr. Bateman.
So, being a person that's heavily involved in an event, quite simply the biggest event other than the fair for the city of Lincoln, I can tell you I want to clear up a couple things. One, tourism never sponsored or gave Up in Smoke any financial backing for our event. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. The tourism asked each entity, which is Up in Smoke, the balloons portion, and the entertainment portion, we had to pony up $500 each year per entity, so $1,500 total, with the aspect of they were going to help us advertise for the event. I didn't agree with it. I'm just one vote, but I found it kind of odd that, as Mayor Welch stated, hotel motel tax, I know for a fact the hotel that I use and the hotel that Seth uses, we split it up, are sold out that weekend every year that we've done it. So that, that's a lion's share of hotel motel tax money. So I am in agreement with what the Tracy is trying to accomplish. I have for quite a few years think that the city should have a much larger say in tourism and in helping promote the city in a lot of different ways. I am one of those that points out on Facebook when Atlanta's kicking our butt with a busload of people and they just drive right on through our city and just keep on going. And then the other statement I would like to make is again, being part of that large event, I was also on that board, with that event when the last group that ran a negative deficit year after year was involved, and that was the Chamber of Commerce, and we know how that turned out. So before we get to that point, I think I agree that it's time for the city to take this over and see if we can change the business model of it to help benefit Lincoln. I'm also one of those that feel that if we bring people into Lincoln for numerous different things, that the other smaller communities around us will also benefit. Let's face it, we got a courthouse in Mount Pulaski where Abraham Lincoln actually practiced law. So if we get the people here, even just on the Lincoln aspect of it, we're sending them in those directions to help those. So I would be in favor of this. I know there's a lot of moving parts and a lot more discussions, but for budgetary purposes, since the budget is coming up May 1, I think it's appropriate that we should have this discussion and have a vote next week on what we need to do so we can also get that into our budget.
Ms. O'Donnell, did you have your hand up? Okay, and then Mr. Parrott.
So the CVB, would we have to, is it just for grant writing that you have to have the CVB? Or, so the county would keep that, but then would we also have to establish that ourselves?
No. We would essentially be part of, I think we're gonna have that discussion, but I believe we'll be part of the CVB because they cover an area. So a CVB represents an area. Because we've always gone through them and have had that one, they've always used that CVB status to get grants. I think it would make sense for the city of Lincoln to also be a part of that CVB as well. And that's again, one of the reasons why I think it's important to make sure that we approach this in a manner that is in the best interests of everybody, but also that we're working together with people for the betterment of everybody. Mr. Parrott?
Yeah, just a few things. And that CVB allows the Bureau to apply for grants. And in fact, the one that Tracy was mentioning about the letters, the donut, and the benches, the city would not have the opportunity to apply for that. It has to come from the Bureau. And that was on a $100,000 grant, almost $100,000 grant that the Bureau was able to receive. And having a Bureau status, which is good that we're talking about hopefully keeping a Bureau status in some capacity, it allows for that Bureau to apply for additional grants going forward above the $30,000 to $45,000, which if the Bureau went away, those funds go away as well too. The city wouldn't receive those. So it's not the idea. Also part of our discussion is that the city department of tourism would not run events.
Correct.
And then also over the last 3 years, the Bureau helped pay bills for, or I think $50,000 a year for the last 3 years from city funds through ARPA funds to help run those events for the last 3 years. So $150,000, $15,15 for 3 years for I think both.
Up in Smoke, we paid all our own bills. The Tourism Bureau didn't do any financial.
So the city gave 15 for the balloons, 15 for
Rail
Up in
splitter.
Smoke, and 10 for the entertainment portions for 3 years in a row, right? Yeah, so that's 100.
And rail splitter.
150 and rail splitter.
Rail splitter was involved.
But the
as well.
Tourism Bureau only paid the bills for the balloon portion.
So yeah, but my point is that we, the Bureau, I say we because I'm a part of both, is that Bureau helps run, help pay for some of those events as far as writing checks, not the Up in Smoke. You guys did your own,
Not the entertainment.
and not the entertainment.
And I can't answer for Rail Splitter.
They did their own as well. Each organization was a recipient of the funds. The only entity that was different was balloons because they had no 501c3.
501c3. So all the
That's
other
why
ones
they
have
asked
501c3.
tourism to help.
Okay, all right. And then you spoke, we'd like to see different results. What results would we expect to see by the city taking it over?
I I would like to see tourists
More people
town.
in, more people, more tourists, more tax dollars coming in.
Yeah, so for instance, some of the feedback, and you might have seen this online too, but some of the feedback, especially when Atlanta is knocking it out of the park with the Giants Museum, is why don't we see buses in town? Where are the people that come to town? There are people. We know there are people here, but they just don't see it. They don't see, like, for $68,000.
Right.
I have not talked to one person who has seen an advertisement for Logan County, and we're spending $68,000. And granted, there's some rationale to that. A lot of it is being done outside of a 50-mile radius. But it's those things, the optics just are not there. And for instance, the hotel, and I just want to bring this up as a point of fact. The hotel that I spoke with, they started, and I know I've talked with you about this, but they started their own tourism guides because tourism wasn't taking them materials. So in order to better serve their guests, they had to take on the role of tourism.
Right.
It's those type of things that we've received feedback on.
I guess just the last thing too, and maybe Chuck can help with this. Do we know, has the tourist hotel motel tax dollars, have they gone up for the last few years, or are they going down?
They appear to have kind of leveled off, but there was somewhat of a decline. Not as bad as I thought there would be, but there was a decline after the colleges closed, and so we did see some decline in that, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it might be.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the things that to your point about the money going up and down, that has come up in a couple conversations about that amount of money. The other question was, and these are for our partners at the county, is they said, well, we believe that we could be a contributor to that because of the wind and the solar, et cetera. I don't think it would be a good thing to discount that. However, that there's a couple pieces to that. The first is hotel motel tax is not collected for stays over 30 days. So if those people are in the hotel for 31 days, we're not collecting anything anyways. Also, those projects are not long-term. And if those projects actually come to completion, we're going to start seeing, if that theory is correct, we will see the hotel motel tax start to go down. And then if going back to the beginning of this conversation, if you have an organization that's requiring the amount of money that this one does to operate, they're going to be running at a deficit, which that's another question that I still haven't been able to figure out is how does an organization that runs at a deficit have $170,000 currently sitting in bank accounts? That's a little perplexing. They have 90,000 in a savings account. They have 67,000 in a checking account and 13,000 in the mill account. So
I know, Sam, I was just talking with Sam. I know we want to go back and we want to look at that deficit piece that you're talking about, because I don't know that's how accurate it is.
Well,
I know you have information. I'm just thinking back to our budgets and our budgets. We're making our budget, and
well, I had questions too. So if you look at this, and I'll let you guys have a copy of this, but I'll let the council see if they want. In here, it makes mention of a net loss of $33,660. I didn't have time to confirm that with the author of this document. I just did the math based on what I threw down, based on income and expenses. So it could be off some. But either way, these are the Bureau's numbers, and they appear to show it's running at a deficit.
yeah, we'll just like to double check those.
Absolutely.
I get it.
Yep. Mr. Conzo.
I'm not familiar with their books of the Tourism Bureau in any way, but this is just a possibility. It could be that the reason that you see those expenditures exceeding the revenue is that they had a sufficient fund balance previously to cover that. And so if they had enough, and the numbers that you stated, it would indicate that they still have a fund balance. If that fund balance were greater, it's possible that they've had to spend part of what had been a larger fund balance in order to accommodate those expenditures. And I have
I
no
think-
way of knowing if that's accurate, but that's certainly a strong possibility.
I would concur with that. And I think that's also worth pointing out that regardless of whether, or to the question of how do they have that much money sitting there, in this particular case, if the city chooses to move forward, it's not a bad thing because there will be a transition period. This will not happen overnight. There's a lot in moving pieces that has to be addressed to make this happen. And that gives them the funds to continue to operate the Bureau for several months. And I don't think it'll take that long to work through some of these issues. So those funds could be still used to operate the Bureau, provide grants, continue the mission until it chooses to become its own CVB separate from the city. Mr. Barrett?
So if this is voted on next week, and I don't know if it'll get on the agenda or not, what would be the time frame as far as would we honor the contract all the way through the fiscal year to the Bureau, or would it? We'd have to look at what does the contract say as far as getting out.
Yeah, I don't. It's a calendar year through to December. There's some things that we would have to talk about with that. If the Bureau, here's another thing that I would say. I would move to stop the funding moving forward, if that were the case, because we have the Route 66 Centennial coming up, and it is way behind the curve. So for us to continue to move forward, even into December, we will have completely lost our opportunity. If we don't get somebody in now that will take that task on and at least try to salvage what we can out of it, then none of us succeed from that. And I will say this, again, not a reflection of the Bureau. That commission was a Lincoln commission. We are just as responsible for its failure if it doesn't happen as well. If we're gonna make sure that everybody is taking adequate ownership of the situation. Ms. McClellan.
I don't mean to get down in the weeds, but just a couple of questions. Will we have a place that we need to rent as if we have a department, are we going to have a place for that department, and will there be expenses associated with that? Or
Good point. So the consultant that we would hire would work remote, so they would not need office space. The support that they would need from the city would be for payment of bills. Ms. Metelko can do payment of bills on behalf of that department. She already does that on behalf of myself and the council. And so, yes, we can address that. That brings up the rent for the Tourism Bureau. So one of the things that we talked about the other night was that if we were to bring in another organization and not charge them rent, something along that lines, it would seem very disingenuous on our part. So if they can maintain a presence, again, this is something we have to work through, but if it turns out that they maintain a presence in the depot, which is where a lot of the stuff is right now, then my recommendation would be not to charge them rent. Mr. Bateman.
And that is one of the discussions right now is the building is not being manned. It's sitting empty. The person that is currently employed by the Tourism Bureau spends their time down at the mill. So we have a beautiful multi-million-dollar building sitting there empty. So that's why in some of the discussions I've had with Tracy, talking about trying to get somebody in there that would utilize the space on behalf of the city, but the agreement would have to be that they have to also man the building. So when people get off the train or they come into town or they see our Tourism Bureau, there's somebody there, whether it be multiple part-time people or whatever, that can answer questions and direct people in the directions they need to go. So that's again something they would need to work out. But as I stated earlier, we kind of need to vote on this, on if this is the direction we're gonna go for budgetary purposes. Then there's a lot of sauce that needs to be worked out after that. But, I think changes need to be made, and the time is ripe to make those changes.
Ms. McClellan.
Just
and
when
then
we
Mr.
were
Parrott.
when we were talking about maybe giving them $25,000 in funding, is that going to be a donation, or is that going to be a partner? Will there be a board with representation? I mean, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just wondering what that's going to look like. With a
Again, it's all theoretical, but their board could consider paring down to a more appropriate size. They could stay the current size. That would be up to them. The 25,000 or whatever that amount that the council feels comfortable with would be considered matching funding to run the program. And in doing so, we now correct an issue that's been going on for a long time, in that the Bureau has been operating that CVB without any type of certification from the city of Lincoln. That's one of the things that we need to fix if they maintain a CVB status. Because the statutes state that the entities that are providing matching funding must provide certification each year as part of their recertification process. Mr. Parrott.
Yeah, so my understanding is that our current employee for the Bureau works part-time in both the mill and at the depot. Don't know for sure. That's what we were told last night. Yeah. And so there is some presence at the depot. And it was discussed if we did pare it down and remain in the Bureau, that part of the discussion is if the city would give free rent, we would ensure that individual would be at the depot.
Yeah.
37.5 hours a week.
Because that would be
That's what would be the requirement for the CEO.
the CEO. Yeah. Is council okay putting this on the regular agenda? Mr. Council, you said it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, just exactly what is it you're putting on the agenda, I guess is what.
I think
question
the agenda item is requests for the council to approve retaining the hotel motel tax for, unless there's a better suggestion. That's where we need to start this at. Sam?
Can we table this to the next COW? I'd like to meet with the Tourism Bureau again, and I think I'm glad that we started this discussion, but it's going to be, in my eyes, it's going to be a longer discussion, and I'd like to meet with the Tourism Bureau before we.
Our budget, Mr. Conzo?
Yeah, about the budget, yes, the budget will be in effect May 1. The budget can be amended once, 10 times, 50 times. It can be amended numerous times throughout the year. We generally don't do it more than 2 or 3 times, but it certainly can be amended. So I wouldn't let that May 1st deadline limit, the discussion and things that need to be done taking their due course prior to the time that you implement this. And
Because I think part of it, I think we just need to find out more about the contract and how soon, can the city get out of that contract with the Bureau. I'm not for sure what that says.
30 days.
30 days.
Yeah. The agreement is January 1 of 2025 through December 31st, 2025. If the funding agreement is being met by both parties, this agreement will automatically renew for each year. If either party neglects or is unsuccessful to fulfill this agreement, either party will have the right to terminate the agreement within 30-day written notice.
So even if Monday we did it, the notice or the agreement wouldn't stop until
30 days.
30 days.
To me, the vote is just, this is the direction we're going to go. And then we work out the details later.
Yeah.
And then that way the funding would be retained at the city, so then we would start building up our fund on running tourism.
Yeah. Sam, to your question, I was planning on actually taking a little bit longer on this, but I was pretty clear with my intentions with several people that I was bringing this to the council, and the Bureau decided to continue to move forward with the hiring process. That was another part that made this an opportune time to make this decision, was because their executive director, as you know, resigned. So they're without an executive director. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like the future with the current interim director, there's some uncertainty. You guys will have to work that out as members of that board and figure that out. But yes, I wanted to bring this to the council because, and I'm just going to be direct, I thought that it could be perceived as very disingenuous for a hiring process to continue and take applicants, interview them for a position that may not exist. So, in my opinion, the question before the council is, do you want to create given the facts that have been presented, is the council amenable to creating a tourism department under the city of Lincoln? If that is in fact the case, the vote would be to retain those funds and move forward. It doesn't prohibit the council or the Tourism Bureau from making decisions. It doesn't prohibit the county from making decisions. As a matter of fact, I think it actually gives them some clarity on what the direction of the city is so that they can make the appropriate decisions. So,
Sam, it's just, it wouldn't be fair for someone to put in a 2-week notice at their current job to take a job there, only for the city to vote and say, we're gonna take over tourism, and then that board has an employee that they gotta figure out how to pay or whatever, because basically the vote, as Tracy just said, the
Sure.
vote is,
I get
We're gonna run
that that's a tourism issue, and that's something that we're gonna have to work out, which is exactly why I want to meet with them again prior to making this decision. I would agree that would be disingenuous to interview and hire somebody, but that's not what we've done. I mean, there's an ad out, and that's all there is. To my knowledge, there's 0 applicants for it.
what if there were applicants?
We would still have to meet with them to hire somebody, and that hasn't
As
happened
part of a
yet.
bureau, you have to have a full-time executive director. My understanding is you have to have it within 30 days. So the bureau had to move. I'm not for sure. Is that right, Scott? How many days is it?
No, it's 30 days to appoint an interim.
We have the interim,
And it's unlimited to hire somebody.
unlimited to hire. Thank you.
Ms. McClellan?
I just did have one more question. I understand there may be some implementation issues with the big grant and with the letters and the things like that.
Yes.
If that is something, is that something that we can absorb if there's gonna be an extra cost in the budget?
No. I think it might be best to let Steve and Sam talk about the grant to the extent that they want to, since they're the representatives. I know information, but they're our representative. Do you guys want to share what you know about the grant and how you're moving forward and all that?
Yeah, so there was some issues with the grant that we're gonna continue to work on trying to fix, to finalize. Yes, the grant isn't going to cover some needed expenses such as installation, the cost for shipping and handling, issues like that we're still trying to iron out. Can I say?
Well, there's some design issues that needed to be addressed, and so we had roughly, I think, 28,000 or roughly 30,000 of money spent that we had to get fixed prior to today's end date for change modifications, which I think, Scott, were those okay by Caitlin?
They're submitted, yes, sir.
Perfect. And so we've been scrambling for the last few weeks trying to get this figured out, and thanks to Scott and to the Bureau getting this kind of lined up especially after today. And so we think we're in a pretty good spot now, or a much better spot to go forward. Otherwise, we could have ate close to $30,000 if we didn't get this buttoned up as far as the changes, because there were problems with some stuff. As Sam mentioned, shipping and handling was just a part of it, but also design aspects for the donut and locations and things of that nature, which, having spoke, we will need for the city to provide approval for the park benches to go, one in Postville Park, one at the depot area, and then also work with a business owner, Patel, at his spot, at his property, for a permanent easement, or perhaps giving property to the city for the donut and for the Lincoln letters as a photo op coming down Kickapoo. And so there's some things that we have to work together with the Bureau, with the city on these aspects, and as well as the markers. What are those called?
The wayfinding signs?
Yeah, the wayfinding signs, signs in specific locations across, which I think Scott's kind of helped figure that out with, and getting approval with the city or with the state. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts, and we were moving fast and furious, and we think hopefully things are in a much better position now for those, which will be a great attraction, for the Route 66, people coming in, and just for the city of Lincoln in general for tourism, which was available because it was a bureau, which I think is why Tracy is trying to put out there the idea of maintaining the bureau, but with a different type of partnership with the county investment, and also our signature for the write-off for the bureau status as well. And Lincoln can still be a part of that grant, proposals and things to apply. I say Lincoln, individuals in the city of Lincoln or entities inside the city of Lincoln can apply for.
Yeah, and I truly believe that the a city-run tourism department will greatly, given the money that will be available to run it efficiently, will benefit everybody, because it doesn't make any sense for us to just promote Lincoln. We all have to succeed in this, right? And so I think it makes more money available to do the things that I think we all know needs to be done. And then it also gives the Bureau that money that they get every year. They can still continue to do those sub-grants to those. And to be clear, those sub-grants, to the best of my knowledge, keep me honest, it's not just outlying communities. There are organizations within the city of Lincoln that apply and get those sub-grants as well. So,
and speaking of those sub-grants, so it would not be the intent of the Lincoln Tourism Department for individuals to come to the city asking for funds. They would still go to the Bureau. We won't want to see those individuals coming up here and asking for funds. Go to the Bureau.
Correct.
And that's where part of the $25,000 from the city would go to help with that as well.
Molly, did you want to?
I don't believe that we will be able to continue to give sub-grants. I believe that that sub-grant came through the city funding, not through the state funding.
Hey, Molly, hold on. Nope, the people that are watching won't be able to hear you. They're going to give you the microphone. We're going to put you on the spot. Yeah, or you can sit in the chair. And for those who are not familiar, this is Molly Pickering. She is the current chairman of the Lincoln County
Chairman
Tourism
of the board
Bureau.
as of yesterday. I could be incorrect on this, but I don't believe that the city would, or that the Bureau would be able to continue to give sub-grants. I think that we were doing that through city funding, but that the state funding, the state grant funding that we receive would not allow us to do sub-grants. That becomes a much complicated issue, and the state funding has certain ties to what we can actually do and use that money on, and I don't think sub-granting is one of those things. So just for clarity on that issue.
So, very good point. So I think the way that you've been able to do it is through the grant funding or the matching
city
funding.
Yes, through the city
So
hotel
if
motel
we
tax.
provided, and we can bring Mr. McCoy up for clarification too, but if we provided matching funding, then you could use the other funding, at least the legal portion of that, to pay for the CEO, and whatever funds that the city and the county were to contribute, I believe those could be used for grants. Mr. McCoy, is that correct?
Yes and no. It's a little bit more complicated. If you just think about, and I apologize not being at the microphone.
Oh, we can get you a microphone.
Okay, you know what, I'll sit back here.
Yeah, you can sit at Andrew's
This
desk.
is off camera where I like to be.
You can fix that too.
Politician. When you think of like a matching grant, and she's correct, there's so many stipulations on the CVB, what's called the LCTB, whatever, all the acronyms, the annual money that they get, which is basically an operation amount of a grant. So all the extra, okay, so there's let's say it's $40,000 from the state, you're going to match it. That match qualifies for the same stipulations as the grant. So it's considered part of the grant money. So it's kind of offhand. Extra or gravy or anything else comes after that, which is the other money that the city's currently supplying, is free game to do whatever they like.
So in the current example, if the grant was $44,000, let's say, because that's what this year's is, and the city and the county equally contributed $50,000, well, total of $50,000 between both parties, right? So then the match would be the $15,000 because it's 30%, correct?
Correct.
Which
From only you, that's correct.
But that would leave $35,000 remaining that could then be used for grants, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's really semantics and how it's put on paper.
It
right?
is correct, because the CVB will have stipulations of how they report. So yes, as long as it's reported in that fashion, then that's correct.
But given that approach, unless I'm wrong, and I know I've talked with you about this, that should be adequate funding to employ a CEO and to also meet the match requirements and to then salvage at some degree these sub grants.
Well, it's more than just the match. So yes, it depends on what that board wants to do.
Right.
I mean, if they can't find somebody at $40,000 or $80,000 or $100,000 to employ, I mean that's.
But I just want to be clear
Right.
that model by the city being willing to contribute to a match, and if the county will meet us as partners, will position the Tourism Bureau to continue to provide at least those services to the outlying communities.
That is correct. Yeah,
That's the intention.
Correct, and you can essentially think of that as the county, their contribution, which is just matching what your match is, essentially, does not have stipulations on it because the money comes from hotel motel, which they don't. They would give it to you from some other budget.
Okay. So I'm sorry if anything I said might have confused the situation, but ultimately, you'd still be able to do those grants. It's just the manner in which you do them. And I think that's probably the devil's in the detail of the world you live in today anyways. It's just a little bit easier given the amount of money that is provided. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yep, thanks.
Good conversation. Okay. Place this on the regular agenda? Okay. We'll place item number 18 on the regular agenda for next week. Okay. Mr. Anderson.
Do you know of any other scheduled meetings, Sam and Steve, that you guys have with the tourism board to discuss this? I'm sure there's probably a hot topic with the board as well. So
Yes, it's Thursday, this coming Thursday. No, wait. 24th, that's what I meant, yeah.
it'll be after our meeting then.
After our meeting, correct, which is why I was wanting to hold off.
I think the concern is holding off just continues to delay this. I guess maybe not to put you on the spot, Sam, but what do you anticipate might change in a tourism meeting that would impact a decision for us to move forward as a city department?
Nothing that we talk about at tourism or nothing we do at that tourism meeting next Thursday is going to have any impact on what decision is made here. But it would make, it could maybe provide more information for us. I mean, I don't know, but I
would it
feel like this
potentially
is still being rushed, and I'm just uncomfortable with it. I guess I'd be more comfortable if we waited. That's all I'm trying to say.
fair enough. I would say that if the city were to actually make a decision, that could then take your conversation with tourism in a different direction to work through the details of what the future looks like, rather than because the way I see this happening, if we do this, is we pause, we wait 2 more weeks, you guys have a meeting, then we do this volley back and forth, and it takes months to complete. And we do have to have the 30-day notice still too.
Yeah, I don't see it taking months. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. I don't
think
see it
that
taking
the
months.
Bureau thinks is that this is going real quick, for their for what they're comfortable with, and that's understandable. And I think that's what Sam is trying to say is, I think the Bureau would like, more discussion on this so that it's not so up in the air and they're kind of like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? But to your point, if the city makes the decision, then that kind of forces them into a decision.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sorry that the Bureau may have that impression. It's really just the fact that the timing right now is what's driving this. And right now, do you guys even have 30 to 60 days to have this back and forth dialogue? I mean, you're without an executive director as it stands. You've got a interim executive director that you don't know the future of. Perhaps she'll be there, perhaps she won't. I don't know the answer to that. So what happens if she finds another job and then she leaves? Tourism's non-functional unless the board opens up the office.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
anyways, those are the type of things I'm thinking of when I'm just asking the council to make a decision on this. So, okay. We'll place item number 18 on the regular agenda. Okay, couple things that announcements I'll share, and then I'll open it up to the floor. First and foremost, I received a letter. I know Peggy got this one. I don't know if the council did, but I'll forward it. This is from Justin Chager, who's working with us on the municipal aggregation. And so just to let everybody know, there are 3 different versions of letters that are going to go out to the community. This states that they'll be going out this week. One is a letter that will go to Ameren customers that have a current supplier other than Constellation. On-site solar are not eligible for the program at this time. It's a opt-in letter for residents. There's an opt-out letter for residents that'll go to all eligible residential customers. Then there is a small business letter that'll go out to eligible small businesses. It's similar. It looks very similar to the residential letter. And I've got a copy here. I can let you look at it if you'd like to. So if you start getting questions from constituents, those letters are going out. They do, if you look at them, they've got the City of Lincoln logo on them like last time up in the center, but they come from Constellation. So these are legitimate letters. If the council remembers, we have the property 544 4th Street, and the council agreed to go out to bid on this one. We received no bids on this property. So as it stands, there are no bidders on this property. So I guess we'll have to decide what the next step is on this one. Mr. Bateman.
So what came up on this property, which I'm very disturbed about, is there's back taxes owed on it. So personally, I think on the next cow, the city needs to put on there that we pay the delinquent taxes on the property, so we actually do own it free and clear. Because that was the concern with the bidder, is he had called City Hall and he called over at the county, found out that someone had purchased the old taxes on it, so he would have had to not only bid on the property and get it from the city, but then also pay the back taxes. I just don't feel it's right that the city put any property out for bid that we don't own free and clear when the person bids, whether it be $1 or $100 or whatever, that we're just not signing it over and it is then their property.
I believe,
33.
no, they're more than that. I think it'll be approximately $1,400.
I just
Mr.
think we should pay them off first and then maybe put it out for bid again.
Mr.
So
Hobwood,
when we acquired this property, the estate was insolvent at the time. If this was the property that was over in Menard, the estate was over in Menard County. The estate was insolvent, as in there wasn't any money in it. So they were looking to purge the property. They couldn't get it. They couldn't sell it. They knew that the city maintained the property over the course of a long period of time, as Mr. Woodhall can attest. So they just proffered to quit claim the deed to us, which was acceptable. You can dispose the property in one of two ways. You can quit claim it to somebody else, which is what we're proposing to do here. We just take whatever interest we have. So therefore, which isn't the first time we've conveyed a property via quit claim deed. We either pay the taxes and then say that we establish the minimum bid at whatever those taxes are, which usually means we get just that amount, or we circumnavigate all of that and you quit claim it to them, and you say you take the property subject to whatever interest we have, which is those back due taxes, and so therefore it's the responsibility of them to pay those back due taxes. So it saves us the whole rigmarole of running around and paying taxes. But if we're not going to get anyone to bid on it, then yeah, we're going to have to pay the taxes. And we went out for bid, nobody bid on it, so we're going to have to pay the taxes now. And whenever this property does, I believe there's a neighboring property that could be up for auction at one point in time one day, and perhaps the people who bid on that would enjoy this property, or another individual can approach the city. We have conveyed properties via quitclaim deed before. We have paid back taxes on properties that we've taken before and established it as the minimum bid. So we'll now be exercising the latter.
and then
I understand it is the $1,400 did have a factor in why this gentleman didn't bid on the property. So that's why I'm saying the city should just pay the $1,400. We own the property free and clear then, and then if we ever put it out for a bid, we could accept $1 for all we care, because it's gonna generate the $1,400 in taxes. Right now, it's, the taxes are delinquent. I don't know if there's any fines or fees that keep going. We'd have to pay the delinquent fees, so
Well,
we should just
Gonna
pay for the.
We're gonna pay it by May 1 anyway, or there will be more.
we currently own the property, so we are responsible for the taxes.
So the property, the person who was interested in purchasing it, he would only be interested, as I understand it, he would only be interested in purchasing it if he purchased the property that was next door, that was up for auction. That auction was canceled, so therefore he's no longer interested in this property.
Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, I believe Mr. Woodhull, we're maintaining and mowing this property. So we're. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to move forward on that one. If the council, any of you have an objection to that, reach out to Ms. Bateman or I and let us know, and we'll talk through it. Okay. Because we don't want to be sitting on property, because when we sit on property, it is tax exempt and we're not generating property tax revenue from it. So the whole intention of taking on blighted properties is to get them in the hands of people that will do good things with them. We've been pretty successful with that so far. We just got to work through this one. But I wanted to let you know since there were no bidders on it. Okay, the other one, I want to give a update on the LDC property. So I received a call this week, and I was informed that Deputy Governor Manar, who is the Deputy Governor for Budget and Economy at the state of Illinois, called Senator Turner's office. They are in fact serious about this. They want to move on this, and they have asked us to form a task force. And Deputy Governor Manar has offered to come down as well and participate in that task force with us. And the intention is to come up with a proposal for what we believe that property could be used for. I know there's been ideas kicked around in the community, so we'll need to put this group together and then bring it to the council and then make that decision. They would like to move rather quickly on it, so I'll be in touch with the council and we can figure out who's on there. It'll also consist of members throughout the community as well. I know Representative Tim Butler, or former Representative Butler, would like to be on there because he now represents the railroad in some capacity, the way I understand it. Senator Turner and Rep. Howder cannot be on there simply because of their roles. But I will tell you that Jacksonville, they have been given the same request, and they have already made their decision, and they have decided to get that property shovel ready there in Jacksonville for housing. So that was one of the ideas that was kicked around earlier when I saw this discussed online. So just so you know. Mr. Donahue.
With the youth facility out there, can you put housing that close to it?
I mean, there's houses across the street. Yeah.
There's a house right outside.
So as a reminder, there's 100 acres out there. There are other properties, trees, things, some good, some bad. My understanding is CMS is going to go in, take a look at it and see if anything is salvageable on the property. So I'm going to try to actually get some time set up to go out there with some representatives from CMS. If any of you are interested in joining, more than welcome to do it. Just keep in mind we got to be conscious of the Open Meetings Act. But other than that, Mr. Bateman.
So one of the ideas I kicked around was we just broke ground on 7, 8, 9 or
7 and 8
tiny homes. I'm not saying 100 acres worth of tiny homes, but I have sat and talked with a few people that are involved in the building process, and setting aside some space to build a small veterans community, and maybe a community center where they can all gather during the day, would be a good idea. You know, like I said, not 100 acres, but maybe 10 of those homes where they can, for veterans, I think would be a good idea. 100 acres is a big plot, so there's other things to be used for.
Since you brought up the veterans' tiny homes, I think I need to make a statement on that. Alderwoman O'Donohue and I both sit on the Central Illinois Veterans Commission. When we made the press announcement, the press conference regarding the LDC property, there were some comments online that I was actually promoting my business. It was phrased as my business because I sit on that board. To be clear, I am a board member. Ms. O'Donohue is a board member. It is a privately ran 501c3 by an entire board. Nobody owns the company. It's a nonprofit organization. So, for the record, we've cleared that up. Hopefully, we will find out.
But it was on Facebook.
So it must be true. Okay, that being said, I do not have any other announcements. Does anybody else on the council or department heads? Mr. Landers and then Mr. Parrott.
Yes, just want to remind everybody that we have the electronics recycling starting Monday, and that goes Monday through Friday next week. Wednesday, the 23rd, we're open till 7, so if there's anybody that can't get in the other days between 8 and 2:30, they can come on Wednesday evening up till 7 o'clock to get rid of the recycling, the electronics. And then also that's for city and county residents. And then I wanted to mention that the landscape waste facility will be closed Saturday and Sunday due to the Easter holiday. And then we will go back to our Wednesday, Saturday operations after May 30th, or April 30th, I'm sorry. We'll go back to the 2 days a week operation on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
And you will be going through the community one more time tomorrow
We will
for,
be running through the community tomorrow, picking up what storm damage is left out there that people didn't get it out prior to our last pickup.
okay, perfect, thank you. Mr. Parrott?
Kevin, can you give us an update on the track this past weekend?
I actually didn't attend because I was in Southern Illinois watching softball, which was awesome. But when we came into town, we drove by there. It looked like a pretty good sized crowd. I didn't hear any issues that they went over or anything. So last year, as we know, the first 3 nights were rained out. So at least they did have practice rained out this year already, but the first night seemed to be excess. So let's hope they keep that going. It is very exciting. Again, there's been offers like we can put people in the flag stand, Sam, if that's what you're wanting to do. So, but
Once in a
yes,
lifetime.
it is a great asset to this community, and I thank the council for voting for it. For those of you who don't go, please try to go once. It is very exciting. Nothing spells better than race fuel and dirt. So.
Okay, any other announcements? Okay, if there are no other announcements, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Alderman Downs made the motion, Alderman Parrott second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. This meeting is adjourned at 8 p.m.